not in a certain area. We're discovering new things all the time. We're discovering new positions for things all the time. So this is an ongoing thing. So design is both something that we intelligently come up with at the beginning, but it's also something that's dynamic and happens. It evolves over time. Our site, the place that we're working with, is going to move over time towards some kind of climax, some point in the future. And even then, that's a dynamic thing. Even then, we're probably going to want to start to cycle things. When we start to hit a mature forest, we're actually probably going to start taking parts of that forest down and starting new parts of that forest as we use timber and the resources. So we're in this ongoing, constant process. We're not quite sure what it's going to look like, but we can put as much of that in our favor. So we're both designing for and open to change at the same time. So we're just going to go through a bunch of different design methods, different ways of thinking about design. And as designers, we're going to use some or all or a combination of these different elements in coming up with where we're going. And in the second week of this course, you will be undertaking a design exercise. So you'll be given a brief, and you'll be actually coming up with a design for a site. And so you'll start to use some of these elements. And whether we use them as straightforwardly as they're presented, or they just become an inherent part of the way we interact with our thought. You know, when we go to, whenever I get a chance to go to a site, whether it's just a friend's place or I've just started doing a little bit of consultancy too, I might not necessarily go through these things in exactly the way they are, yet they're in my mind. They're in the way that I think about it. I'm going to be thinking about, the first thing I do whenever I go anywhere is immediately orientate to the sun. That's just the first thing that happens. It's like, where's the sun? Where's the winter, summer, sun path? You know, and that's something we're going to talk about. Then we're going to look at where are the other factors. Where's the relationship between what we want to produce, where we live, what the flow of the space is, what's available. And the more that's revealed, the more it's kind of funny. It's like we think that we want this nice big blank slate, but the big blank slate with nothing on it is actually probably the hardest thing to design. It's the more limitations we have, the more creative solutions we actually can come up with. And so my friend's place site that we just did the earthworks on, the fact of just putting this swale across the landscape suddenly reveals the possibility for more design. Whereas before that, it's like, you can put this here or that there, and it becomes almost overwhelming, the possibility. But the moment we start creating limitations on what's possible, we start to actually innovate and have a lot of novelty. So,
the day someone says to you that you could have the largest piece of land you like, choose any bit, have the most fertile soil, have the perfect rainfall, and an open budget to spend as much as you like, you're in the biggest problem.
You just don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. So it's actually the limitations that create starting points. And that's like, for example, on this side where we did the earthworks, the first point we start is with a contour. So we start with the placement of water harvesting features, which we'll be talking about in water the day after tomorrow. So, one of the first things we're going to want to do when we come into a site is we're going to want to, whether it's our own, whether we're consulting or designing for another person, whether we're starting a project with other people, we're going to want to get very, very clear on what it is we're doing. What are our limitations at a broad sense, both in terms of our limitations of what we want, what is our intention, what are we able to get away with from the government, the legal, the jurisdiction side of things, what's okay and what isn't okay, what is our zoning, what is our housing permissions, etc. What is the landscape we're in like, what are the limitations of the landscape and the climate that we're in, what are the kind of budgets that we have to deal with. These are all the very first layer of things that we're going to deal about. So this is when we look at it in a broad way. We're looking at elements of a total design. We're looking at what are the site components. we're looking at what are our social components. Looking at our abstract components. And our energy components. So, our site, the actual site components, what are some of the things that we might have to consider right at the outset from our site that we could think of? Yeah.
Maybe a north facing slope.
Yeah. Slope
Graphical.
aspect. Yeah. What else might we want to consider on the site?
Actual boundaries of the site.
Yeah. We can have a look at the boundaries. They may come out under the social, the legal, the jurisdiction kind of thing. What is the actual boundaries of what we bought?
The directions were north, east.
Yeah, this is what we call aspect. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to want to know about our water. What's the rainfall? Is there a creek running on site? Are there any existing dams or water storages? What are we going to do in terms of water? Soil. We're going to want to look at our soil types. We may want to do some soil testing. We may want to see if there's locked up pollutants in the soil. We may want to just have a sense, especially if we're going to do earthworks, we're going to want to know what kind of soil we are. Do we have enough available clay? We're going to want to know what kind of soil we're in. Are we in sandy soil? Are we in more clayey soil? What's our kind of humic content is going to determine how well we're able to garden.
The salinity of the soil.
Yeah, the salinity, the pH, all of these things are things that we're going to want to consider. Absolutely. We're going to want to know about our climate. This is going to be a huge determinant of what we do. You know, are we in a dry landscape? Are we in a humid landscape? Are we in a more temperate? Do we have winter rainfall or do we have summer rainfall? It's going to really determine whether you have winter or summer rainfall. Do we have frost or do we have no frost? What's our minimum and maximum temperature is going to be a huge determinant of what's possible on the site and what we're going to do. You know, plants. What kind of plants are available on site? What are we working with right from the outset? Are we on a completely clear-cut piece of land, just open and bare? Do we have an established cover? Do we have, if we're buying a bit of land, sometimes some people go and they buy a little bit of land that's got mostly native vegetation on it. Well, you're just in native vegetation. Ethically, once there's a native vegetation establishment, we don't really want to interfere with that anymore. Once a native forest is up, we don't want to interfere with that anymore. Or do we have a situation where we've got a tree cover that's full of weedy trees? So they're invasive trees that have taken a canopy and made us a kind of a forest, but ethically there we actually have no problem with transitioning that into something else. That's something that I'm particularly interested in, is how we transition from an environment that's largely weedy and invasive trees into something that's either more native or something that suits us, something that's desirable to us. But that's a different game. A lot of the time we're working with coming out of grass and into forest, but I'm really curious of how do we come out of non-desirable forest into desirable forest. It's a different set of strategies that we're going to use if we do something like that.
Buildings?
Yeah, the buildings are going to come down probably more in our energy components. So we'll start looking at what are the existing structures on the site. So we can look at our energy components. We're going to look at you know, what is our power or our energy? Are we connected to the grid? Are we looking into appropriate technology? Solar? Do we have opportunities for micro hydroelectric production, or do we have opportunities for wind energy production? What are the things? Both what is existing and what is available, and what do we want? You know, we may want to be completely off grid, but we're in a situation where we actually have not a huge amount of sun, but we have excessive wind, or the other way around. So we're going to want to consider these things, and the types of appropriate technologies and machines we may want to use. We want to use a tractor. How big is our site? Tractor, Jeff has often, ever since I've been there and I really understand it now, that the tractor, if you're looking on a farm, a tractor is the power of the farm. It's the workhorse of the farm. It's what you use to get everything done. It makes it so much easier. If you didn't have a tractor, oh man, you'd be spending a lot more time with wheelbarrows. Tractor with a bucket, with a 4-way bucket is just so useful. But also with a PTO drive on the back, the ability to add attachments to it. And it's like adult Transformers when you're playing with the tractor, the possibility of attachments and everything. It gets really fun.
Where would you put, that makes me think of scale.
Yeah.
The scale would be under there somewhere, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it might be on the social or abstract, like in terms of, are you talking scale in terms of?
Well, just scale and design, because on that property you need a tractor, on another property
Exactly.
you can't use a tractor, so that's what made me think of scale,
Yeah.
the scale should fit.
Yeah,
in
we'd
there
probably
somewhere.
put that, somewhere under here. The scale is going to be relevant to the size of the property that we're at, and then it's
Right.
going to cause us to make a whole lot of decisions. So what we do when we start here, when we're looking at these things, we're just narrowing. We're immediately from the outset starting to narrow our decisions, narrow our options, and we want to do that as much as possible. And it seems almost counterintuitive at the outset that you want to limit your choices, but the more we limit our choices, as I said, the more novel and creative solutions we're able to come up with. Because when you get on a big bit of land, it's really hard to cover every little aspect of it. To design and have in management every single aspect it took me being on a site for a year plus to really get it. And it's something that we've often had when people come in for short-term volunteers, and they come in with all these very strong ideas, and I get it, I understand, because I was there myself, of what after you learn this, we have a really idealized, and as I keep going back to it, these are ideals we're moving towards. We have this really idealized sense of what permaculture should be, because we get a sense of what it could be. So we have this idea of what it should be. I mean, and why isn't it this? And why do you have weeds there? And it's like when you work on it every day, you see that it's a challenge to really get it all. Like it takes time and a lot of work and a lot of discipline and a lot of consistency.
That just comes back to that 2 minutes that Angelo spends looking at 1 square metre a week.
Yeah.
60 square metres, you can be in absolute perfect control. It's like a Bavarian. You've got it. Step onto an acre and go 4,000 square metres. Step on 66 acres of Zaytuna farm. You're a flea on a dog. You're nothing. You're nothing. You have to partner up with ecosystem design. This is where the design starts to come in. When you're inside zone 1, you're inside type. Hey, you got it. You've got no excuse. It's Play School, Sesame Street, it's all over. It's 101.
Yeah.
Step out. Now you've got to form a partnership where you submit to the natural system and start playing to the rules. And it's a different day. Very clever what David just said about people coming in with the idealism, what we should do and what we could do, but like, let's get on with what we can do.
Yeah. I mean, you take it down to an urban scale site, you're looking at a house, okay. Within a year of really good consistent discipline, you can get virtually every corner of that managed, maintained, designed in place. But when we scale up, it's like, forget about it, When we're on this 60, I've been to every part of the property now. It was probably over 6 months before I traversed the whole property. There's sections there I've visited once, ever. In over a year I visited once. So Jeff maybe visits once a year or something, as parts of it,
I just had a student on the online course and we're pre-launch, so we're not actually in the course. I'm going to try and show you guys some of the sneak preview videos, if I can get the manual converted. So they're looking at sneak previews of the coming online course, which launches in October. And a student in Vermont, they're already asking me questions that are too far in front of the course. Try not to ask questions that are too far in front, it will slow the action down. But they're already doing it, and I'm answering a little bit. This guy's in Vermont. He's got 0.15 of a hectare that he's just purchased. And and he's concerned about decompacting the soil. Should he use Fukuoka techniques with daikon radishes? And I was like, hold on a second. You're going sort of right out there into this sort of like idealistic sort of world of Fukuoka and the one straw revolution. And he says, oh, in winter, like, should I just sheet mulch it all and cover it with, like, you know, a foot of mulch?
1 hectare, 1.5 hectare.
It's 1.5 hectares, so it's 1,500 square metres. And he said, what technique would you use? I happen to have done this, right, for a long time, and I actually designed a lot of urban properties and implemented and went back and maintained as an experiential business, not to make a lot of money, just to get my head on it. I know that it takes 1 tonne of newspaper to thoroughly cover 200 square metres.
Once again,
1 tonne of newspaper, 200 square metres, to really cover it thoroughly so that a client can feel, okay. And it's 1 bale of straw, the small bales, not the big ones, the small ones, 1 bale of straw to 1.5 square metres, minimum. If you want to do it well for an urban client, it's 1.3 square metres to a straw bale. That will give you a really thick sheet mulch and top mulch. So I have to tell my student, well, look, you are talking about 7.5 tonnes of newspaper and 1,000 bales of straw.
10,000,
Did you
15,000.
hear back from them?
No, it's 1,000.
Yeah.
1.5.
An hectare is 10,000 meters squares.
Yeah, so it's 1,500 square metres that he's got, right?
Sure.
Divided by 1.5 equals 1,000 bales of straw. Right? So, no, well, he's still a student. He's still there. And I have to go on to explain, right? You are better conditioning the soil just this once, right? Or maybe you can make a mistake twice, but it's okay. Just the top layer. Use a decompaction tool maybe, if you want, like a U-bar. Decompact it a bit, he said it was clay. Open up a germination surface just by scratching and slight cultivation and cover crop the thing. Immediately you're partnering with a rampant plant or two, variation of vetch or field pea or, you know, whatever's your local agricultural cover crop, and seed it 4 times the density they recommend. It'll cover itself. It'll grow its own mulch on site. Immediately it was a move away from what you can totally control to get a living element to work with you. And you're still directing it very heavily, because you're still in a smaller area, but don't try and urban garden your way across the whole landscape, because it ain't going to happen. Logistics are going to kill you. It's just going to knock you out. And where we're going, that's very relevant to just bear in mind. One of the big failures of people in permaculture is they get a wonderful success in Zone 1 urban gardens, and then they keep that attitude as they go out, and it just falls apart. You can't do it. You cannot do it. You have to be a millionaire. A billionaire if you get too
And
many.
you need to have a lot of labour.
A lot of labour. So you're not partnering the right way.
Yeah.
You're not trusting. Islamically, if you talk to Islamic people, you're not submitting to the Creator's word. Islam, submission.
Yeah, so, scale. We're going to go look in the abstract, also look at the legality. So we're going to have to look at zoning, legislation, you know, what are we allowed to do with our site, what are we not allowed to do with our site. We're going to have to look at, you know, finances, what is our actual budget. You know, it just depends on what are we doing, what is our design for. So these are questions that we start asking. These are questions we start asking when we have, okay, I'm going to do an aid project in this certain country, or I'm starting my own eco-resort, or I'm just doing a family homestead. Each of these things are going to answer these questions completely differently, but they're going to start to give us a shape to work with. You know, people is a big one. You know, if we're working in a place, as I keep referring back to, you know, managing the people on site, we're working in a place. We need to understand what is our structure for working with people. You know, what are our? I mean, even on a homestead site, what are the family rules and family breakdown of tasks and everything that we have to do? How do we do this? So this is something that we need to think about, these kind of management techniques of people, and what are the people involved. Also going to have to look at, the culture. The culture that we're in is going to really, really make a huge difference. Oops, no, these are more social ones, sorry. Put them in the wrong place. Yeah, the culture that we're in. How does that determine what we're doing? If we're from an outside culture going to do an aid project in a completely different culture, that's going to become a massive consideration. For Jeff to put this place in here, it's a huge consideration of culture, what he's doing. And he was talking the other day, I don't know who was here to hear it, but he was talking about the construction of this building. So we could go in and put our really amazing, perfect desert house in place. But if you look out everywhere, this is the model of house they use. This is the model, this is what they're comfortable with and what they know. So Jeff made a decision to build this very same model that they use, but using renewable resources, but doing it in an alternative way. So he's showing them what they're naturally tending to do, but an alternative for it, rather than doing something completely different where they may not see or understand or value it. So it's a cultural decision that comes into place. Over here, if we look at abstract, we're going to look at ethics. We have our permaculture ethics that we spoke about yesterday. They're an underpinning. They're going to determine what we say yes and no to. But then we may also have extra layers of our own ethics to add to that. So they're decisions that we need to think about and make about. We're going to think about timing. Timing is abstract, but it's really important, because one of the hardest things for me is the patience. The patience to see something, a design, an idea, a creative vision, from the vision or the idea to its actual inception, to its actual return as some kind of productive element, can be quite a delay at times. There can be, if you're planting a food forest, you're looking at 5-year plus delay between putting it in the ground and getting it in to it actually producing in any kind of, and that's only the beginnings of production. You're looking at 30 plus years delay before you're hitting any kind of maturity. So this is a massive sense of timing that we're working with. So we have to be aware of what is that and what do we need to do at certain points along that time, especially in the first 5 years of establishing a food forest. There is quite a lot of input of labor that we have to put into that. There's quite a lot of work that we need to do to allow it to get the form. And we'll talk about that, I think, tomorrow. Allow it to get the form to start moving into this food forest pattern. We have an input, so we need to really consider the timing. In terms of budgets, we're going to have to consider timing as well. What are the elements that we stack across time? And what are the phases of implementation? And when do we do things? If we're doing earthworks, we want to do them in a dry part of the year. But if we're building a dam, we want that dam to be filled within a couple of weeks of it being built. So if we don't have access to water to pump to fill that dam, we may want to see how finely we can cut putting that dam in before a rainy season. Because if you leave a dam exposed to the sunlight without filled with water for too long, the clay can contract and crack, and you can start actually unsealing the dam as a result. So we're going to want to, timing is going to be a massive consideration for all these kind of things that we're doing. And then data, just all the different forms of data that we're going to have to collate and collect on our site. All the information. Jeff often talks about, I haven't had the the pleasure of starting my own site from scratch, but what he talks about is what you want to go to, and you decide is you want to go and talk to the oldest people in the area and ask them about stuff, and they remember all the things. They remember when the biggest floods, they remember the major climatic events that have occurred, the large floods, the fires, all the big things. And this is really important information. We're going to want to design with these in mind. We're going to want to design for our 1 year, our 10 year, our 50 year, our 100 year flood events. These are something that we want to have a design for. So we're going to want to collect as much data as we can. So that's one of our first elements of design. So just as a little exercise again, I'm going to do a couple of little group exercises today. Again, in say a group of 4 or 5. Choose just like very quickly, almost the first thing you can think of. Choose a design. What are you doing a design for? Is it an aid project? Is it an eco resort, an eco village? Is it a personal homestead? Is it an urban site? Is it a community garden or a demonstration garden? Choose something you're designing for and just go through making decisions about some of these things. So we'll just do this quite quickly, but just as a little exercise to kind of ground that in, make some really quick decisions about some of these different aspects that you may go into. And so it's all fictional, it's all made up, it's all creative, but give it a go. We'll do that for about 10 minutes or so.